Did you know Larry Bird is one of the greatest trash talkers in NBA history? We all know that trash talking's been a fundamental part of basketball for as long as the game's existed, but no one did it quite like Larry Bird. Larry was a master of the art, using his mental prowess to get inside the minds of his opponents and throw them off their game. But before we dive into that, we can't talk about Larry Bird without talking about his iconic legacy. Despite the fact that he wasn't the most athletic, couldn't jump very high, and wasn't nearly as quick as many of his opponents, he was still a dominant force on the court during his day. A force who struck fear into his opponents with his genius-level basketball IQ and unmatched skill on the court. He was one of the greatest lights-out shooters in NBA history, and could even shoot the ball with both hands. One time, he announced that he was going to play at least 3/4 of the next game using only his left hand, which he did and dropped 47 on their heads. After the game, Larry Bird stated, "I'm saving my right hand for the Lakers." This man could not be stopped. He was a walking heat check, and his opponents knew it. Defenses around the league had no answer for him. Larry Bird's trash talking was not just about throwing insults at his opponents. He used it to get under their skin, distract them from the task at hand, and gain a psychological edge over them. And he was a master of it. Many former NBA players who played against him have said that he was always at least a couple of moves ahead. That's how he had an edge over players who were more physically gifted than he was. So let's dive in and take a look at some of Larry Bird's most memorable trash-talking moments. One of Bird's most famous trash-talking moments came during the 1986 NBA three-point contest. As he walked into the locker room before the contest, he saw his fellow competitors, including Dale Ellis, Craig Hodges, and Reggie Miller, all wearing their warm-up jackets. Bird looked around and asked, "Which one of you guys is coming in second?" He then proceeded to win the contest, famously declaring to the other players, "I'm the best shooter in the world." Another memorable moment happened later that same season during the 1986 NBA playoffs. The Boston Celtics were playing against the Atlanta Hawks, and Bird was going up against Hawks forward Dominique Wilkins. Wilkins was known for his incredible dunking ability and was considered one of the best players in the league at the time. But that didn't stop Bird from trash-talking him. During the game, Bird turned to Wilkins and said, "I'm the best player in the world, and you're overrated." Wilkins was taken aback by Bird's trash-talking, and it threw him off his game. Bird went on to score 20 points in the fourth quarter and lead the Celtics to a victory over the Hawks. This was just one example of how Bird's trash-talking could give him a psychological edge over his opponents. Another example of Bird's trash-talking occurred during a game against the Detroit Pistons in the late 1980s. The Pistons were known for their physical play and rough style of basketball, and they often used these tactics to intimidate their opponents. However, Bird was not one to be intimidated. During one play, Pistons player Bill Laimbeer fouled Bird hard and knocked him to the ground. As Bird got up, he turned to Laimbeer and said, "I'm gonna get you back, Laimbeer. You better watch your back." Bird followed through on his promise to Laimbeer later in the game. As Laimbeer was going up for a shot, Bird came from behind and swiped the ball away, causing Laimbeer to miss the shot. As he ran down the court, Bird turned to Laimbeer and said, "I told you I was gonna get you back, didn't I?" Another one of Bird's legendary trash-talking moments happened during a game against the Chicago Bulls in 1986. During the game, Bulls player Orlando Woolridge was having a good night. He was scoring at will against the Celtics defense. Bird, who was guarding Woolridge, decided to start trash-talking him in an attempt to throw him off his game. He started telling Woolridge that he was too predictable and that he knew exactly what he was going to do on every play. Woolridge, who was known for his hot temper, became increasingly agitated by Bird's comments. But Bird's trash-talking wasn't just limited to his opponents. He would also use it to motivate his own teammates. He was known to frequently taunt his teammates, pushing them to be better and holding them accountable for their mistakes. During one game, Bird's teammate Dennis Johnson was having a rough night on the court. Bird turned to him and said, "If you don't start playing better, I'm going to have to call you Magic Johnson." Now, this obviously was not meant as a compliment, as Magic Johnson was a fierce rival of Bird. But the comment from Bird was enough to motivate Dennis Johnson, and he went on to play better in the game. On another occasion, Bird got into a shouting match with his teammate Kevin McHale during a game against the Portland Trail Blazers. The argument was so heated that the two had to be separated by their coach, but it also served to motivate McHale, who went on to score 29 points in the game. Another instance of this occurred during a practice session with the Boston Celtics. One of Bird's teammates, Rick Carlisle, was struggling with his shooting. Bird noticed this and started talking trash to Carlisle, telling him that he couldn't shoot and that he was going to miss every shot he took. Carlisle, who was already feeling down about his shooting, became even more frustrated by Bird's comments. However, after a few missed shots, Carlisle finally hit a three-pointer. Bird turned to him and said, "It's about time you made one, Rick. I was starting to think you forgot how to shoot." While this type of trash talking may seem harsh, it was Bird's way of pushing his teammates to be better and to never settle for mediocrity. Even the cheerleaders weren't spared from Larry Bird's trash talk. There was this one time when the Chicago Bulls cheerleaders devised a plan to take Larry Bird and the Celtics out of their game before they played against the Bulls in the first round of the playoffs. The cheerleaders went to the bar and bought beers for Larry and the Celtics, hoping to get them drunk before the game. But reportedly, Larry knew what they were up to the whole time and proceeded to torch the Bulls in that game and sweep them 4-0 in the series. And when Larry walked off the court, he glanced over at the cheerleaders and said, "Thanks for the beers." But perhaps Bird's most infamous trash-talking moment of his career came during the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, when the Boston Celtics faced off against the Detroit Pistons. The two teams had a long-standing rivalry, and tensions were high as they battled it out for a chance to go to the NBA Finals. During the series, Piston forward Adrian Dantley had been struggling with his shot, and Bird decided to use that to his advantage. As Dantley stepped up to the free throw line, Bird leaned in and whispered, "You're shooting it short." Dantley, who'd been shooting poorly from the line all series, was thrown off by Bird's comment and missed the free throw. Bird then turned to the Pistons bench and yelled, "I told you he's shooting it short." From that point on, Dantley's free throw shooting only got worse, and the Pistons ended up losing the series to the Celtics. Bird's trash talking had once again proven to be a powerful weapon in his arsenal on one of the biggest stages in the game. No wonder Larry Bird's trash talking was such a big part of his legacy. It was legendary. It's what set him apart from other great players of his time. Larry Bird's trash talking was not just a way for him to get inside his opponents' heads. It was a strategic tool that he used to gain a psychological edge over his rivals. Whether he was taunting his own teammates or provoking his opponents, Bird's trash talking was always calculated and effective. His ability to get under the skin of even the toughest competitors is what made him such a formidable opponent on the court, and why his legacy as a trash-talking master endures to this day. But beyond just his trash-talking prowess, Larry Bird was an all-time great basketball player. He won 3 NBA championships with the Celtics and was named the league's most valuable player 3 times as well. He was a 12-time NBA All-Star and a member of the NBA's 50th anniversary all-time team. Whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying that Larry Bird was one of the greatest players to ever lace up a pair of basketball shoes, and his trash talking was just one of the many reasons why. And while some may argue that his trash talking was unsportsmanlike, there's no denying that it was effective. Larry Bird was a player who would do whatever it took to win, and his trash talking was just one of the tools he used to get the job done.